After decades, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe are back. At the helm, one of the god nerds working in Hollywood, Kevin Smith. This is my review of Masters of the Universe Revelation Part 1. After a cataclysmic battle between He-Man and Skeletor, Eternia is fractured and the Guardians of Grayskull are scattered. And after decades of secrets tore them apart, it's up to Teela to reunite the broken band of heroes and solve the mystery of the missing Sword of Power in a race against time to restore Eternia and prevent the end of the entire universe. Before I start my review, let me know your thoughts on this show, if you're excited for it, if you grew up with the original He-Man show and Masters of the Universe, throw it all down there, start the conversation. It's always the most important part. And while you're down there, if you're new to the channel, first of all, thank you so much for clicking on this video. You are the best just for that. And why don't you consider clicking the subscribe button? It does wonders to get the content out there, and you'll always be aware of whenever there's more great content like this. To start us off, I need to say I did not watch the original Masters of the Universe show ever. I've seen bits and pieces, I know the basic concept, I had figures of the 2002 show, but that original show is just a little bit before my time. But I've always liked the notion of this world and universe with these characters. Again, I had the figures, I like this, I've seen the live action movie, so let's not talk about that anymore. This show is fucking awesome. Again, I've only seen part 1, and debuts this Friday, July 23rd on Netflix. This show is fucking badass. It is very, very metal, which was to expect coming from Kevin Smith, but he really dives deep into the lore of the entire universe of Eternia and the Masters of the Universe and He-Man, and this is a very welcoming show for people who have never seen the previous shows. It basically picks up after the events of the original series, but it just welcomes you in, lets you know the basic concepts, how this works, what is this all about, who are these characters, what is their relationship to one another, while at the same time telling its story and not just stopping to give you all the exposition. The show does a really great job at bringing something new that reinvigorates the franchise, but also celebrating and embracing what came before. And it doesn't just satisfy itself with bringing these characters back and here they are, enjoy everybody. It actually furthers the characters, it makes them more complex, and it deepens our understanding of each of them and their story so far. And not just the heroes, but the villains themselves get a great shine on them too, like Triclops, Beastman. Some of the most obscure characters of this franchise really get a moment in the spotlight that they really deserve. But at the same time, it feels like a great starting point. Again, if you have never seen any of these shows, you are just as welcomed into this as if you were watching the original show. And these characters are all very charming. They have a lot of 80s sensibilities, very simple, basic dialogue, very badass, heroic, or villainous dialogue that goes straight to the point, but it fits in this show. Again, it feels like something that was updated right from the 80s, from the fighting sequences, again, from the dialogue. The animation is fucking stellar. This is some of the best animation, if not the best animation, any Netflix show has put out thus far. I love how this show looks, I love how it moves, I love the fighting sequences. You can see it all in its mesmerizing glory. There are some great fights in this show. And my god, the score by Bear McCreary, again, so fucking metal, which I love. I don't know if I made it clear, but metal is my jam. And Bear McCreary, no joke, drops the best score I have heard in anything film or television this year. Again, it's an embrace of the concepts that made He-Man and made the 80s as we remember, and it upgrades them, it invigorates them. It gives this adrenaline kick to the entire show just from the score, and it's amazing. I also really like Teela. She's a great character. We follow her for most of this show, and we really get to dive deep into her perspective on all of this, on the adventures she's had with He-Man, on being the daughter of Man-at-Arms. We also get to dive into all the other characters around her, which I can't spoil, but there are characters that are not necessarily heroes, that because of something they are teamed up with people who we recognize as heroes. But for real, the one character who steals this show the most is Orko. Orko is fucking amazing. He's probably the character with the best and most overarching development throughout part 1 alone. I really love what they did with this character. I really love what they did with all the characters, to be honest, but Orko is really a standout for the best reasons possible. And who am I speaking of characters without mentioning the amazing, the stacked voice cast? Mark Hamill as Skeletor, the best Skeletor we've ever had. He's sensational in this role. He's relishing this. He's having the time of his life. He's eating the scenery up in every scene he's on screen. Chris Wood is amazing as Prince Adam / He-Man. Spoiler, I guess, they are one and the same. And whenever these two guys go at it on screen, it's sensational. It's really fun, and that's really a word that encapsulates this show. It's fun, it's big, it's bombastic, it's epic. It's filled with action and filled with lore. It really gives you a brand new look at Eternia like we've never seen before on these characters as well. As far as part 1 is concerned, Kevin Smith and everyone else involved does a really great job, and again, shout out to Orko and Bear McCreary for their incredible score. As far as issues are concerned, because I love this show, but there are a few issues. There's something really big, massive that happens in the first episode that kickstarts the story. It's full of emotion, it's filled with weight, it again kickstarts the story, it puts something into perspective, it changes the status quo of the show, and we get into a shift, and that's how we start going. But then they do it again later on in like episode 4 or 5, and it just felt unnecessary, and it felt like they were doing the same thing again. My other issue, and perhaps my bigger one, is something that I cannot talk about, unfortunately. There is a character in this show that I was expecting to see a lot more of, and this character is barely in the show. Now, this is only part 1, so looking at part 2, it might work very well in the whole context, but for part 1 alone, I was somewhat disappointed. These characters are all rich, these characters are all great, they are developed in an incredible sense throughout part 1, but there's a key piece missing. And despite all the things I have to say that I love about the show, and I stand by all of them, that piece is still missing. But you know what? Part 2 could come in and recontextualize everything, and it makes all the sense in the world for them to fix all my issues I had with part 1. Nonetheless, Masters of the Universe Revelation is such a fun show. Electric and exciting action sequences, a deep dive into this amazingly interesting lore, furthering characters we already thought we knew, but giving them a new dimension, giving a dimension to this entire world. This is the big bombastic fantasy franchise that I needed to fill my void and that we needed He-Man to be, so thank you, Kevin Smith. I'm giving Masters of the Universe Revelation Part 1 an A-. And so those are my thoughts on Masters of the Universe Revelation coming to Netflix this Friday. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on it. Are you excited? Which He-Man show do you love the most? The 2002 one? The 80s one? Do you love the live action film the most? You might be out there. You might be the one. Thank you so much once again for watching. I'll be back very soon in my review for Jungle Cruise and many others to follow. And I hope to see you in all of those. So until then, love each other and love the movies.